I left my parents, 2 sisters and 1 brother in the Warsaw ghetto. Until today, I still don't know what happened to them.
Hi, I'm here at the National Jewish Retreat in Palm Springs, California, and I'm honored to be joined by Joseph Alexander. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and just introduce yourself to our viewers?
Oh, my name is Joseph Alexander. I'm a Holocaust survivor from Poland, and I survived 12 camps.
Tell us a little bit about Poland. What was it like growing up there, and anything you remember from your childhood?
I had a very good childhood. I had a good, nice family. I had parents, 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and I'm the only survivor. And we had a very good life until 1939, when the Germans came into Poland. They came into Poland, they divided Poland in 2 halves. In 1939, everything came to an end.
How old were you in 1939?
16.
So did you understand what was going on leading up to 1939?
Yes, we knew, because we knew what was going on. But we didn't have any problem in 1939. We knew about, in 1938, in Germany, it was the Kristallnacht at the time. But in Poland, we didn't feel it yet at that time, until 1939, when they came into Poland.
How was that process? What happened to your family in 1939?
Well, when they came into town, and, we lived in Europe, every town has a town square. And the town square is where most of the business are. We lived in town square. We were the second house, the one corner of the square, and the third house was an uncle of mine. They came in after a few weeks and went after my uncle around the square and told the people they have 10 minutes to get their possessions and get out in the middle of the square, and they took them away. For some reason, I'll never know why they left those 3 houses where we were the second house, why they left us. And then rumors started that they're going to come back 3 days later and take the rest of us. So when they came into Poland, actually, the Germans, they divided Poland in 2 halves. One half was annexed to the Third Reich, to Germany. The second part was Poland under German occupation. We lived on the part where it was annexed to the Third Reich. So then they came in and they took people away, and then they said 3 days later they're going to come and take the rest of us. So my father had 3 sisters living 25 kilometers before Warsaw. That was the other half of Poland. So Dad said we're not going to wait for them to come and give us 10 minutes. So he got out and he rented a wagon. We had a horse-drawn wagon, deep wagons, about 6-8 feet deep, and packed up most of the stuff from the store. And my parents and 1 sister and 1 brother left. And I remained with 2 older sisters. And we were loading a second wagon. And we took off and we went to a little town named Bologna, about 25 kilometers before Warsaw. So we came there, and their life was going on, still going on, almost normal. People were still in business, but everybody had to go to work. So being there for about a couple of weeks, I went to my first camp in 1939, to a camp where you work during the week, on the weekend you can go home. But the work we were doing, we were building a canal. You stayed in the water up to the knee without boots, and that was October, November. In Europe, that's already like winter time. So I worked there for about 5 or 6 weeks, and went home one weekend, and I said, I'm not going back. because I had blood poisoning. I had sores on my arms, on my legs. So Monday morning, police came to look for me. So my dad said, he's not here, he's supposed to be in the camp. So I stayed away from home for a while, until things would cool off. And that was the time where in Warsaw, they were building a wall where the Warsaw ghetto was going to be. So after they finished building the wall, they said all the Jews who live within 50, 60 kilometers in the surrounding area of Warsaw had to move into the ghetto. So we moved into the ghetto, and the life in the ghetto was so bad you can't even imagine, because the area they picked out for the ghetto was a very small area, and they put in over 400,000 people. People were dying every day. You walked out in the morning, there were dead people on the sidewalks, on the streets, everywhere. It was very bad. So we paid off the guard at the gate to get out, but it lasted 3 days. I was free. After being there 3 days, they came out with an order. All the Jewish men from 16 to 60 reported to the schoolhouse. So I reported to the schoolhouse, and off I went to the camps. So the first camp I went to, we were building a dam, cutting down hills, and we had little electric cars where we fill them up, and you take them another place and they dump it. So the work we were doing was very hard work, because we had to use picks to loosen up the ground. It was very hard work, and the food you were getting was a piece of bread like this in the morning, and a cup of coffee, and you went to work. You came back from work, you got a soup. It was either the peas from potatoes or spinach. Doing that kind of work, you couldn't survive. The only one you could survive is because we worked with civilians. See, we were doing the work, but the officer in charge were civilian people. As if you managed just to get a little extra food, that's the only way you could survive. So people were dying every day, every morning. They took dead people out of the camp. And I was in a camp where there's a city named Poznan, and there were camps in the city and around the city. That's why I kept moving from camp to camp. All different things, different camps. After being in about 7 camps, a train arrived, and it wasn't a passenger train, the cattle car train, where they put 30, 40 people into one boxcar. And the destination you were going, it takes maybe 5 or 6 hours at the most. But we were riding around for 3 days. No food, no water, no facilities. We came to Auschwitz. Auschwitz, there's a little town named Oswiecim. So the train stopped in the town, in the middle of the town. And they opened the doors from the train, those boxcars. 30, 40% of the people were dead on the train already. Whoever could walk, you walked out, and were lined up in rows of 5. And we met Dr. Joseph Mengele.
Had you heard anything about Auschwitz before then? Or this was the first time you found out?
No, yes, we knew about Auschwitz before that. And we knew coming to Auschwitz was bad enough, just coming to Auschwitz. So Dr. Joseph Mengele said, there's 6 kilometers to walk to the camp. He's going to select people to go to the left. And the people on the left are going to be taken on trucks. So he went through and picked out sick people, old people, young kids, and picked me out too, because I was a little guy, like I was a young kid. So he picked me out to go to the left. If I would come from home, I wouldn't know the difference. But I was already in 7 camps, and most of the camps I went to had to go to work. I always tried to get into the biggest, strongest man. And here I look around, I see sick people, old people, young kids. That's not the kind of people I like to be with. But my luck was, it was after midnight. If it would have been daytime, I don't think I could have done it. But it was after midnight when Dr. Mengele moved further down. I ran back to the other side. If I wouldn't run back to the other side, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. Because the people on the left were taken on trucks, went straight to the gas chamber. So I ran back to the other side, and we walked to Auschwitz. Came to Auschwitz, I got a shower, came out of the shower, and I got a tattoo. 142584. From that moment on, you had no name. That was your name. Got a tattoo, and there's Auschwitz too, called Birkenau, about 3 kilometers apart. And I walked to Birkenau. I was in Birkenau for about 5 months, and I saw Dr. Mengele 2 more times in Birkenau, but it was daytime, and I was far away from where he was. So I got through. And then the typhus broke out. Typhus is where you get very high temperature, high fever. So anybody who went report to the hospital, I never knew anybody who came out of the hospital. I got the high fever, the temperature, but I didn't report to the hospital because I had a couple, we called, like a foreman, you know. But he was also a prisoner. So he didn't care if we worked or did. When I got that high fever, high temperature, I was sitting like this behind those stacks of bricks for about 3 days until I got over that temperature, and I went back to work, back cleaning the bricks. So a short time after, the Polish underground attacked our camp, trying to free us. So they were fighting one all night. They were unsuccessful. So the next morning, they closed the camp, and they took us out. And we had to jog to get out of the city. They were afraid the underground may attack us in the city. So got out of the city, and they put us up on a big field where farmers graze their cows, and the ground is very moist. So whatever, put us up on a field, whatever means you have, a knife, a spoon, anything that you could dig up some mud. And you took the bottom of the shirt and squeezed the mud to get a little water. So we got a little water, and we were walking until we came to a railroad station, stayed overnight there, and we got on the next morning, the same train arrived, and that time we were 3.5 days on a train without food, without water, and we were going to Germany, to a camp named Dachau. Came to Dachau. Dachau was the first camp Hitler built for political prisoners. Then he turned it into a concentration camp with the gas chambers. So came to Dachau for about 3 days. I didn't do anything because they were establishing 12 camps around within 50, 60 kilometers, the surrounding area of Dachau. So I was sent to camp number 1, and I was working for a farmer. We were digging potatoes. And that lasted about 3 weeks. Then I was sent to another camp. So I worked there in the kitchen, and I had 2 German men in charge of the kitchen, but they were very good to me. People would go to work that they passed by our kitchen, so I stopped them and I gave them some food.
Was this the first time you had food like this since you had started going to the camps?
Yes.
So after 4 years? Wow.
So a couple of times, the officer in charge of the guard complained that I'm holding up the people going to work. So my people told me, don't worry about it, let them talk, do what you're doing. And that lasted for quite some time, quite a few weeks. Actually, to April 28, all the 12 camps, you had to go back to Dachau. Went back to Dachau, they put us up on a big field, and the next morning, what they called, we go on a death march. They're supposed to take us in to the mountains in Germany. There's a ski resort named Garmisch-Partenkirchen, and they're supposed to kill us in the mountain. But we walked for 2 days, and we knew we were not going to be walking too far because we could hear the fighting going on. We knew that the American troops were not far behind us.
With what energy, with what strength were you able to do those 2 days?
I don't know myself. I just did. I don't know. We just, with no food, no water, nothing, for 2 days, or 3 days. And I say, so we knew we were not going to be walking too far because we can hear the fighting going on, and called the airplanes coming and bombing the cities all around us. Between 12 and 1 o'clock, an American tank moved in and we were liberated. And the American troops were behind the tank. So they tried to block off the village, not to let anybody out. But we were a group of 9. We didn't want to get blocked in. We were in the camps over 5 years already. We didn't want to get blocked in. So we broke through and started to walk to see where the next town is. And then I decided to go back to Poland, to my hometown, to see if any of my family survived. Because when I got out of the Warsaw ghetto, I left my parents, 2 sisters, and 1 brother in the Warsaw ghetto. Until today, I still don't know what happened to them. So I went back there, so I come to the house, and there were survivors living on the 2nd floor. On the 1st floor were Polish people living. But I said nobody, my immediate family came back. A cousin of mine who came back, he was 2 years younger than I. And I was with him and 2 of his uncles, 2 of his father's brothers, when we went to Auschwitz. And when Dr. Migler told me to go to the left, so that's when we were separated. But the uncles didn't survive. My cousin, he survived. But he is in a different town, they told me. And that was very bad for the survivors who came back to Poland at the time, because when they took the Jews out of the homes, they moved into the homes. And when some of the survivors who came back, they didn't want to give up the homes. So they were killing a lot of survivors. In one town named Kielce, they killed 42 survivors in one town. So that's the Polish people on the 1st floor asked me if I'm going to stay. They said they're going to move out. I said, don't bother, because I'm not going to stay. And I went and picked up my cousin, and we went back to Germany.
Why did you decide to go to Germany?
That was that was the safest place you could be. Because the American troops were took in Germany. So that was the safest place we could be. A friend of mine lived in the next village, so he came, he said, now you can go to Munich and register to go to America. So we went to Munich, registered, and it took only about 2 weeks, and I got a notice from the American doctor to go to check you out, and the FBI to check you out. And then I got a note to go to the port in Germany called Bremerhaven, where the boat was to come to America.
How did you feel finally going to America?
Couldn't feel any better. So I went to the boat and I came to America on May 30th, 1949. So I was sent to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I got a job as a tailor. Worked for a man who had a cleaning store and a tuxedo rental. So I worked there for a tailor. A man, the name was Max Kaplan. A father couldn't be better than this man was to me. So I was there for about 6 months because when I came in May, and my cousin who survived had an uncle here in Santa Monica. So he came to Santa Monica in October, and he told the uncle that I'm in Pennsylvania, and we were the only two survivors from both of our families. So the uncle called me a few times. I should come to California here so we can be together again. So in 1950, I came to California, and so here I am. And before everything else now, I was in 3 camps. I had to watch people being hung. People trying to escape, and they got cut. And on Sunday, we had to gather around, watching being hung. So here I am now.
What do you wish people knew about the Holocaust that you don't feel is accurately represented?
Well, what I do now is, because we have to talk about it, tell the people what happened, because especially young people. I spoke to about hundreds of thousands of high school, middle school, and high school students. And I was told 70% of those students never heard about the Holocaust. So this is our job, the few survivors we are left, our job to go and talk and tell them what happened. Tell them what happened. Tell them that 6 million Jews were murdered, not because they were criminals or did anything wrong, just because they were Jews. And now we have a lot of anti-Semitism going on and some Holocaust deniers. I call it kids, I tell, those Holocaust deniers that they're crazy. Call them crazy because the evidence is still in existence today. You go to those camps, to Auschwitz, Dachau, Majdanek, Treblinka, Buchenwald. You see daily, today, buses come with people from all over the world to witness the gas chambers and the ovens. So that's why I call the Holocaust deniers, they're crazy. Don't listen to them if you hear. And if you do hear something you don't think it's right, don't be afraid to report to the authorities.
Any final things you want to share with the audience?
Final thing is, when I talk to the people, I told when I was in Birkenau, and I saw people running to the electric fence, people being beaten to death. So I tell the students that. And sometimes I get questions from the students. Did you ever think of giving up? Because they did rent the electric fence because they gave up. They couldn't take it. And did you ever think of giving up? I said, no, I never thought of giving up. I never lost faith. I never stopped believing in God. And I said to myself, maybe I may have a bad day today, but I hope tomorrow will be a better day. But I said, never give up. And I have thousands of letters, what I get from the kids after talking to them. And most of them repeat the words, what I tell them, never give up.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for giving us your time today.
You're welcome.
It was such an honor to meet you.
Thank you.